If you've played any Cookie Run game for a while or are familiar with the story, then you shouldn't be surprised that these games are a lot darker than they appear. Under the bright and colorful pastries facade lies a gruesome world that can only be described as pure horror. I will be covering the franchise as a whole, with heavy focus on the two recent updates for Kingdom and Ovenbreak. They're what inspired me to make this video. I'm not sure whether YouTube would bonk me for the nature of the actual topics of discussion, so I will be somewhat indirect and you would have to infer from the information given. There will be spoilers for the two aforementioned updates. The sole reason why this franchise manages to desensitize so much of its story is thanks to one thing: censorship, or rather, self-censorship, through the world building, especially through the language. Most players often ignore the subtle cookie coding in the language, as their brains only recognize everything at a glance as sweets and pastries. But when examining everything while matching cookie concepts to our human equivalent, things get much darker. Strawberry jam equals cookie blood is one we're most familiar with. Strawberry jam flows in the cookie's dough, and their dough/body can crumble. And if dough equals flesh or skin, then when cookies were reduced to flour at the hands of Mystic Flour, we were seeing the equivalent of humans after being put into a blender. Recontextualization isn't so pleasant. Let's take a look at a scene from the new Ovenbreak update. White Peach Cookie was just inside of her clan's temple. Then suddenly, the scent of strawberry jam hit her senses. The moment she steps outside, she's greeted with a scene of cookies piling onto each other in the courtyard, bathed in a crimson light, like everything is covered in jam. Standing in the middle of the courtyard is the culprit, staring her down. Her life is on the line. The games don't just stop at physically disturbing stories. They go into the psychological side too. Continue that scene with White Peach. Now she stands before a cookie that took out everyone she thought to be the greatest martial artists of her clan. Her parents, her teachers, everyone she knew. Now all lifeless. Her response? She thanked the killer for freeing her. There are several psychological phenomena happening here. Just how harsh were the training regimen of her clan really? Her response expressed a desperation for survival. Here she's merely a child, a trainee. She could not fight. She could not run. Her survival instincts kicked in. Even if it means bowing down to the enemy, she had no other choice. She gave them her clan's sealing stone, their most closely guarded artifact, and joined the cookie's cult in exchange for her own life. Let's look at the bigger picture. No matter what game it is, cookies were always made to be eaten. Imagine one day people found out that they were brought to this world by a god for the sole purpose of being consumed by said god. Then what would even be the meaning to their lives? Lives mean nothing to the Saint Pastry Order, a religious organization established to worship these cookie-eating gods. Worship to the point of blind belief. Even though the founders knew the truth, they willfully lie and brainwash followers to believe those gods were saints, to believe a future that would take their lives. Even the High Fork Bearer was smiling from ear to ear as they faced the Avatar of Destiny, what was thought to be an angel, a savior, a messenger of the godly. But as they got closer, the monster showed its true face, absorbing the cookie and any unfortunate devotees who stood too close, incorporating them into its flesh. As if the scene wasn't disturbing enough, there were still obsessed followers who willingly approached the Avatar, blinded by their faith, ignoring the blood-curdling screams all around them from the panicked cookies running for their lives. If you had described that to someone while mitigating the cookie language, they would think it was straight out of some religious horror. In this world, if you weren't born with or blessed with any godly powers, your life is constantly at the mercy of those who do. The beasts were once promised heroes, but corruption turned them into living nightmares. Shadow Milk Cookie psychologically tortured cookies for his own amusement. accidentally stepped into the garden of sweet delight? Either you follow the lies of false bliss and stay forever, or try to leave and get turned to stone. Even the cookies here have to pretend and smile through their mental torture. Say how much they love to stay, just to try and stay alive. You can't escape. And I've already mentioned Mystic Flower. But still not getting into the many ghosts in these games and their implied backstories. White Ghost Cookie haunts a school, and her trial location is on the school's rooftop. How did she become a ghost? We were never told. Onion Cookie is a ghost child, but she doesn't even know she's a spirit. There are countless more examples that I won't be getting into. So why does any of this matter? Well, at the end of the day, video games is a form of art, and it is thanks to the world building that they're able to write us such fascinating stories without much sugarcoating. Well, if you don't see using cookie lingo as desensitization or censorship, that is. And it's not necessarily a thick veil of metaphors and obscure slangs. It only requires you 5 seconds of comprehension to see how dark these stories really are. Nowadays, most content are at the mercy of the guidelines and censorship rules of the platform they're on. So stories told in this way are important. Throughout history, people have always used coded expressions as a way to evade censorship. It's nothing new. In this day and age, it's being done extensively online to get information to the audience that need them the most. Many serious topics should reach a wide audience to educate as many people as possible. But since speaking directly on such topics is restricted, new words and expressions are constantly being invented, all for the purpose of communicating information. Of course, it can be used for both good and evil, and the effects may vary. Cookie Run isn't really intentionally censoring itself, and the language isn't the only thing that's doing this. When we're playing through the story, we're seeing their world through our human perspective. Everything the characters say are only filtered to our ears. I can guarantee you that depictions like this scene in a human form could never fly under the radar, especially with how much blood is explicitly shown. If Cookie Run truly was made for kids, then they could have just stuck with all the colorful and cheerful updates. But no, they have been doing these layered stories for as long as the franchise has existed. Is what make the world feels more alive. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. Personally, I very much enjoy them, and I look forward to what the devs have in store in the future. That's all I have for now. I hope you've enjoyed and that you learned something new. Check out my channel for more Cookie Run, and I'll see y'all later. Bye bye!